Sup everybody, this is Karak with ACG and welcome to the first ever Q&A that's official for the channel. You know, as a smaller channel, I've never felt that comfortable with doing these because it sort of always felt like an ego thing. But lately I've been getting a ton of questions, especially in the comments, where I couldn't really answer them in the comments because they were too detailed or weren't about the video at hand, didn't want to digress the conversation. And I figured, let's throw out some questions and see if anybody bites. And instead I got way more than I thought I was going to get by a lot of people, and a lot of people asking somewhat the same question, which was very cool as well. So I figured, you know what, let's do it. Before I begin, I want to say thanks to everybody who started watching other videos on the channel that they originally didn't come to the video or to this channel for. I'm starting to get a lot of people saying, man, I have to admit, I saw your walk in the walk and I loved it. I saw your review and I was like, holy shit, I like this review too, or vice versa, where they saw the review and then they were like, hey, I'll check out the reviewer bits, or I'll check out the horrible game found. I want to say thanks because I can see that jump every single month, and I really do appreciate seeing more and more subscribers viewing the content versus people who don't subscribe or just generic views. And lastly, yeah, I'm wearing sunglasses outside all day, super sunny here. And as you guys know, last year I had eye surgery and I got to protect the peepers, especially because, well, I review games and graphically I have to be able to see them. So I'm just going to jump into this. Brandon asked the question, what's one thing game devs or pubs generally need to do differently? I think they need to shirk off that yoke of old man PR. You know, old man PR is the almost newspaper style PR where we're only going to give our information to the biggest places and all we're going to care about is views, not length of watch or integration of comments and discussion on the video, just the numbers, because we think numbers are all that matter. I think we've seen that that's not actually how it works. Additionally, let me just be honest here. You got companies like Nintendo that basically terminates YouTube channels if you even magically discuss or accidentally say Nintendo sometimes on a video, or you got to sign their devil's contract to join with them. And you have companies like Sony that is very, very strict and only deals with, numbered YouTubers, ones that have millions and millions of views and no one else gets anything from them. And even they have a lot of difficulties getting them. Mostly, again, you have just the big websites. Now, why do I have a problem with that? Well, I'm going to be brutally honest. Lately, we've been seeing a lot of reviews. This is one of the reasons why I got into YouTube. We've seen a lot of reviews where they're very short. 3 minutes for Technomancer, for example. Now, the reason why I have an issue with this is because I think that inherently you need to respect the title enough and respect the gamer enough to give a review that allows a gamer who is using the review to decide what they're going to buy enough data to decide. You see, a lot of people who love games and love a particular game may not even watch the review. They're just going to buy the game. A lot of people who don't like that genre or that style game won't watch the review because guess what? That game doesn't interest them. So inherently, who is your main audience? Your main audience are people who want information. You can't give enough information about fucking Technomancer in 3 minutes, even if you hate it. That's one of the problems that we see all the time with the old man style PR, where you get just numbers, circulation. That's all that matters. Circulation. It's almost like you can imagine a bunch of old fogies with their glasses and their fucking pocket fobs going like, what's the circulation of that website? They're the only ones who will get it. Yeah, that kind of shit is stupid. And it's ignoring the fact that digital media has completely passed them by. And we are getting situations now where we're seeing everything from Twitch to YouTube and other places start to sort of catch up. And in fact, many times, for example, even my reviews will beat out GameSpot or IGN on YouTube. And there's a reason why. And I think that's because people inherently go to reviews to decide, and you need to give them enough data. Because how many times have you seen an average game and gone, you know what? I don't know if I want it, let's watch a review. And you see it and they explain things in different systems and you're sort of teeter-tottering, and then they explain enough things that you're like, you know what, it is an average game, but I'm still gonna get it. Or you know what, I didn't know what I was going to expect, but now I understand I'm not getting it. What have you. But the fact is that data in there needs to be there for the gamer, and you certainly need to, I think, respect the amount of work these people do. And no written reviews that I've seen in almost multiple years have done that. And certainly many video reviews are too short to do that. So I think that would be it. I think these companies need to shirk off any of that old style PR press. It's time to put away the three-piece suit bullshit and embrace the fact that the media has completely passed a lot of these bigger companies by. You know, one of the companies that everybody thinks is completely anti-consumer and may even be is Microsoft, who has their own actual division to handle YouTubers and actually does, and Twitch and other people that aren't the big companies, and actually treats them very nicely. So, take that as you will. Brandon also asks, least favorite trope in a game and most favorite. So least favorite would be Amnesia. Amnesia. Oh my God, the guy wakes up and he's like, I don't know who I am. And you just expect a, Bon Jovi song to play and his duster to flip up. And he's like, I got to walk into town and figure out who I am. It's always the same kind of shit with that. They're always a badass. What I would like somebody who had amnesia and they were just an absolute terrible person, lazy sloth. And all they find out at the end of the game is that they just enjoyed eating those little, what are they? The little puffy ducks that you can get in Easter. Peeps, I think is what they're called. And did nothing else, just an absolute terrible, boring person. But instead, you get the typical trope of the person who has amnesia and they come out and they're fighting people and they're like, I know Kung Fu, but they didn't get it by a jack in the back of the neck like Neo in the Matrix. I would really like to see that not happen as much because, we see amnesia in books and we see amnesia in movies and we see it in games. And it's just one of those tropes that to me, the question was, of course, least favorite. That's how it became that. Now, most favorite. I don't have one. Here's why. You guys notice I probably don't do a lot of top 10 lists unless I'm really jokey about it or unless I feel really strongly about something. That's because when a game sort of achieves a certain point of prominence, I don't immediately go, that game is number 1, that game is number 2, that game is number 3. You know why? Same reason why I don't have that for reviews. Those numbers mean fucking jack shit to me. When I look at it and go, what's the difference between 1 and 2? Well, if this one's a fighter and this one's a platformer, have fun trying to figure out what the difference between 1 and 2 is. Unless, of course, you bank on fun factor, but even that can change. So when it comes down to it, I don't really have a favorite trope, just like I don't have a favorite multiple things. I like them, they get to a certain level, and then I consider them just insanely good. Next question. Baseball Prodigy wants to know, this is also a Twitter fan, personal list of best games with technical aspects like Best Blood. Well, that's way too long for me to cover because there's so many technical aspects. But I will say one thing that completely shocked me was The Vanishing of Ethan Carter uses a technology code called photogrammetry. Now, what that does is it basically goes out and it takes pictures of items in the real world and creates polygon meshes, textures, and everything for them so they are gamified at that point. Fantastic. When I was a kid and I first turned on that first full motion game, I was like, we're playing games that are movies. But then we realized quite quickly we're playing games that are movies. It wasn't as cool as we thought. Well, with this tech, you can do that. With this tech, you can have that moment in The Vanishing of Ethan Carter, whether you like the game or not, when you're walking through that first part of the forest and you realize this is not a forest they walked through. It's parts of different trees and all that stuff made into the forest that they wanted us to see reflected in their game view. But the fact is that you're walking through what looks like a goddamn pretty much real forest. And we see a lot of work going on in that area of technology. In fact, Resident Evil just a couple days ago, I think they released some snippets about how they're using it in their future titles and in that title in particular. And I think it was Resident Evil 7. Yeah, whatever, one of the Resident Evils, and it's the new one. And that was really fantastic to see that because I think that that's one of those places where, we talk about Uncanny Valley. When it comes to the world, we may not see a lot of Uncanny Valley coming in the future, and it's particularly about that one technology. The next question, Santiago says, what's my opinion about full-priced AAA games having microtransactions? I don't care about full-priced games having microtransactions. I don't care about free-to-play games having microtransactions. What I care about is if the transaction in any game inherently changes the base core of the game. That starts to bother me. For example, if I'm playing a game and the grind rate, and I beat it, and I don't use any microtransactions, and I don't feel that natural feeling of things are delayed for no reason. And it's not just a game loop problem, because that happens in games without microtransactions. See, that's one of the problems. People love to inherently point and identify something. Now, that's probably because humans are difference machines. That's what saved us, as we were cavemans hammering on rocks and grabbing women and dragging them into our caves, or men, what have you. That was what we used, was difference. We noticed something, and we sort of point and go, that's why. This is here, that's why. That person is dead because that bobcat just ate their face. That's the thing. But when you look at microtransactions, unless I feel that the inherent gameplay is adjusted, when I see, let's say, if somebody said, hey, there's a new Virtual Fighter 5 and you can buy some clothes and blah, 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 great. Cosmetics, I really don't have an issue with. But if I had to buy the next character because it came with 2 characters, I start to have issues in that way. And I don't really care about the game price. See, that's the thing. I don't think inherently a game at 40 should have them, and a game at 60 shouldn't. A game at 20 should have 10, a game at 40 should have 5, and a game at 60 should have none. You know why I don't? Because I think that is leading us down a road of trying to categorize things that don't make sense within the inclusion of the whole project. Because when you look at it, some games that may make sense and some games it may not. And if you put your foot down and if you draw a line in the sand, sometimes you're going to end up missing out on things that don't have the expected reaction you would originally expect because it has some aspect that you don't like. When you look at it and go, I'm not doing that because it's got this. It's almost like somebody says, I don't like this actor, so I'm not watching this movie. Well, okay, there's other actors in that movie too, usually. But if there aren't, and if that actor's bad, then all of that made sense. The thing is that within games, you have so many different aspects of the title, right? You have so many different things, the gameplay, the sound, the music, the voice, all these other smaller things that microtransaction inherently is not the first thing that I think affects the game. The developers may have just not done a good job, or they may have done an excellent job. It all sort of boils up. So long story short, how do I feel about full games having microtransactions? I am not bothered by full games having microtransactions. I am bothered at any game that has a grind element to it because of microtransactions. I am bothered by any game, even a free game, where a microtransaction inherently really disrupts the gameplay loop. So hopefully people got through that without closing this, because they realized that I actually just dislike microtransactions that affect the gameplay, and I wasn't saying they were okay, but who knows? I'm sure I lost some subscribers on that one. Let's see. DT asks, favorite world design. I don't know exactly what that question is. Favorite world design. I will say that I think what they're asking is like, linear versus hub versus open world. Hopefully that's what it is. My favorite is KOTOR. I did a really cool video that was KOTOR's level of Manan, or hub of the Manan planet, versus Cradle from Thief 3. And not really versus in which one's better, but why I liked them both. And they were really inherently and intrinsically, at their very basic, completely different styles of levels. Manan is this amazing level in KOTOR, and I think that it's helped by the hub world aspect. So if you say, what's my favorite world design? Though I love open world games, I think hubs allow for a bit of a chapter break, like a book. Like a book when maybe you change from the primary character to the secondary character's point of view, and you're all excited because you're like, oh man, I get it, I understand. Like now we're listening to it from the helper's point of view instead of the main guy, and then you jump back to the main guy, and every time the guy that you just got done understanding his internal thoughts is walking around, you sort of know a little bit more about him, and maybe what he does makes a little bit more sense. Well, hub worlds do that for me. There's a break there, and I think it helps. You land on a planet, for example, Manan, and it's this moment where, Jolie, who has been this curmudgeonly sort of bastard, always a little bit domineering, but trying to pretend like he's not, taking second stage, and you're taking center stage finally. You're more the master, you're more the person in control, and you're doing this space Star-Lord futuristic lawyer bit. And he's sort of stepping back, and you're the person who's finally, all of these other things that have happened in the game are sort of poignant here and pointed, and they make sense and they matter. There's a weight to them. And I think Manan as a whole, the game world itself, was helped because of that hub world design. Do I like open world? I love open world games, but sometimes even a game like, let's say, Witcher 3, where it's transparent, that switch between village and outside world, where you slowly see people starting to live farther and farther away as you get into the rural and away from the urban. That's awesome. But sometimes it makes the game feel a little odd when things don't necessarily match up distance-wise and stuff like that. Hub world design, when done well, is fantastic and can be really, really cool, and can break up a little bit of the monotony that may occur in an open world title. So my most nostalgic, again, would be KOTOR. Let's see, Go Burns. What does Nintendo need to do to make the NX a success and bring some loyal fans? I think the honest truth is we all understand that they're like Scrooge McDuck, swimming around their IPs, but never really releasing them and just hoping to get more money. Nintendo's an odd duck, because when you look at it, they have just a swath, an unbelievable number of ancient, old, and new IPs. And in every single console that they've released, there's always been one missing, or 2 or 3 or 10. I would love for Nintendo to just be like, guys, we're bringing it. We're going N64 style. We're going to throw some crazy tech in here, and we're going to throw some really crazy IPs, even though the N64 didn't have as many IPs as I would have liked. That was hindered by other things, but the mixture of the two. And the reason why I bring up the mixture of the two is because, frankly, they're coming in at a really odd time where we're hearing a lot of rumors that it's less powerful even than the PS4 and the Xbox One. And I think that brings up the problem with entering in mid-generation, because you have a price versus performance kind of situation there where you actually know what's out and you get to choose. But inherently, we now have the Neo and the Scorpio, which throws another loop in there. And we have seen that people who interject, or companies that interject in generation cycles, have difficult times. Usually, not every time, but have difficult times. And I think that the NX has a ton of difficulties there. You know what I would really love? I would just love for Nintendo to be like, man, this thing is ultra powerful. It is expensive, but it is going to be a full-on console. Because that's the thing, is a lot of people, whenever I used to talk to them about the Wii, they'd be like, well, that's not even really, I mean, it's a console, but like, you know, it's almost like talking about something and it's like half of something. It's a diet cola. You know, it was just unique in that aspect. And even the Wii U the same way. I want Nintendo to come in and be like, we're 64 ounces of full gaming sugar, suckers. Suck us up. Let's get gaming diabetes. But they probably won't. And those IPs are going to matter. You know, most of the people that I know who are my age or 10 to 20 years younger are closet Nintendo fans. They're fans who actually may be Sony fans now, but they're sort of default Sony fans because many of the titles that they actually like went to Sony consoles. And it's because Nintendo let them go. And I would love to see Nintendo come back with a vengeance and be like, you know what? All of this money we've been saving to buy these private islands, I don't know what they're doing with it, but all this money we've been saving, we are going to absolutely throw it at amazing IPs and amazing technology. And we're going to try to do something that is different and has shown that it's successful elsewhere, but we've never tried. And that's to hit it with a ton of IPs and a ton of power and see where we go from there. But I don't think it'll happen, unfortunately. The next question is, Bad Seed Tech says, what motivates you to put out thorough reviews at a blazing pace you keep, that you keep, and how do you stay consistent? Well, first of all, I have to say this. If you look at Bad Seed Tech's YouTube channel, his stuff is like, oh, and mine is, oh. I mean, resolution, editing, everything is just insane. So I'll say this, compared to him, I may appear to release a ton of videos, but that's because his probably take 10 times longer and they look amazing. If you guys get a chance, check out his channel. The question about motivation, guys, I love games, man. I fucking love games. I love talking about games. I'm fiery about games. I'm passionate about games. I love discussion about games. It's one of the reasons why our community is so awesome, is because the people talking about them, we get the occasional asshat, but those guys can be lost quite quickly. Instead, we have amazing people talking about amazing things all the time. And I learn stuff too. You know, people a lot of times have a tendency to look at the person, the creator, and either be overly negative or overly positive. What I've found is that, especially for me, the questions and the discussion and stuff like that is just so, it's so engaging that I want to create another video so that we can talk about something. And that's how I do it. I'm fiery about games. I got into this to create videos and be a reviewer. And additionally, I will say this, for 20 years, I worked in multiple industries that were almost militant in their timing and their planning and their scheduling and their budgeting. I usually schedule out exact days to play games with buffers. So if the main time doesn't work, and maybe even secondary buffer times to play those games. I really, really take it seriously. I take it seriously. I make sure that no one's around when I'm playing them. I experience them myself, unless it's a multiplayer game. I make sure that I am really concentrated on just that one game. And I really think about the game as I play it, how it revolves, how it feels by itself first, and then how it feels maybe if it's a sequel. But it's really important to me to really cover how it is by itself, because I just had somebody a couple days ago say, hey, Karak, man, I've never played a Assassin's Creed game. Is Syndicate good? Well, that's a really good question, because a lot of people would say, well, the first 4 have burned me out, so Syndicate's not good. Actually, that's a false statement. Syndicate has its own stuff that it needs to rest on. And we have a lot of people. Every day I'm told, I just bought my first console. That's sort of how I aim my reviews. And I think that's why I personally stay fresh, because if I continued to latch on and hold the hatreds and hold the problems of this industry in my heart forever, at past the warning, at past the warning level that I have it at, because I do have a sort of desire to make sure that I'm in check and that I don't just get burned. But I think as long as I keep that, then I will continue to have that ability to make videos and to talk about it and be fiery about it and be interesting and knock my mic stand down. So that's how I do it. I love games. I want to talk about games, and I love the community. Next up, Captain. It's just Captain. That's an awesome Twitter name. Man, he got lucky. Captain says, any advice for someone who wants to get into the YouTube crit game? I'm assuming that's critique. So I did a video about this, and my video title was something along the lines of, should I create a YouTube channel? And my advice to them, which is a different question, was don't ever fucking ask me that. Just go create, go make. Use your passion, make whatever you want, and make it good. Because I'm going to tell you, terrible people make YouTube channels and get a lot of views. So a person who's passionate and really wants to further gaming and stuff like that, you will get some views. Will it be the number you want? I don't know. But do we all really ever get everything we want? Maybe not. Maybe so. But when it comes down to it, do I have any advice to somebody getting into it? Yeah, my advice would be, make what's passionate to you. Don't just change. Even if you have subscribers, a lot of subscribers saying you should absolutely do this. Take it, but don't immediately do it, because I've made a couple changes where a lot of people are saying, hey, blah, 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 this, and it's failed utterly. And it dawned on me, it's because every single time I've switched away from my passions, away from the things that get me up at 6 a.m. and put me to sleep at 4 a.m., sometimes 2 a.m., it depends on how much sleep I get. Those are the things that keep me creating videos, and it will keep you fired up and it will keep you creating, and people will see that passion, and you may only gather a couple like-minded, passionate people around you. But here's the thing that you really need to think about. Aside from views and stuff like that, isn't that inherently one of the greatest things in the world, to gather people who are awesome to talk about cool shit with? Like, that's pretty fucking cool. So anyway, good luck if you do it. Let's see. Next question is, Terramate on Twitter asks, how do you pick games to review? That's an interesting question. So here's how I do it. First of all, I basically email the company, and I get 1 to 3 responses back. The first response cracks me up, because they'll be like, oh, we don't have a review list yet. And I'll be like, how the fuck do you not have a review? You know it's created. Make a damn interest list for it. It's so lack of professionalism. It blows my mind. You know you're creating the game. Create a goddamn list, because the moment you create the game, people are going to be interested in it. How could you ever think possibly it would make no sense to have some kind of list to at least capture people's information? It's completely stupid. Now, the second that I will get sometimes is, yeah, we've got you on the list. The third is no answer. And this is really sad, because I talked to Skilled Media. Now, Skilled Media, you saw him on a lot of the podcasts we used to do. He's not doing YouTube as much, but we talked about this a lot. And one time he emailed me, he's like, Karak, man, I'm not getting a lot of response from these PR companies. You know, do you think I'm too small of a channel? Do they not like me? And I'm like, dude, I'm 4 times the size of you, and I don't get responses. That is something, when you jump into YouTube, it absolutely happens all the time. You even hear, I just had somebody comment on the channel that Angry Joe said that somebody didn't contact him back. It happens to everybody. So I pick in that way. I email them my interest, right? And then I also look at any games that are coming out on Steam, any games that are coming out on PS4 and Xbox, and I watch them all, and I try to basically get all of them. And here's how that works. I don't. But what I do get, I review. Oh my God, because one thing you will never see this channel do, and I've tried to figure out a way to do it to my level, and I'm not happy with it. But one of the things that I think is absolute bullshit is here's my video of the 10 or 15 fucking video games that somebody gave me for free, and I'm gonna cover each one for 2 minutes. Fuck you, man. Man, that is just an absolute lack of respect for the developer. It's a lack of respect for everything involving gaming. You know what? Take that code and give it to a gamer who might be interested in it. Have them go out there and enjoy this game. Instead, you took $15, $20, $60 worth of code to cover it in 2 minutes and be like, blah, 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 blah. Please hit thumbs up. Fuck you, man. Now, some people right now are probably going like, I know exactly who he's talking about. First of all, you probably don't. And second, if you do, it's not like I hate the person. I fucking hate those kind of videos. There is a difference, and we need to remember that. We can still critique and say, but I'm sure the person's fine. I just hate that kind of stuff. I think that there's a respect there, and I think that you can do much more than just blathering out a video to get some views. So that's how I pick games to review. Yeah, I email or I get emailed back. And, if somebody emails me and says, hey, do you want to cover my game? I will try to cover it. I will never ask for a code if I don't think I can cover it or have scheduled time. There has been times where I haven't been able to. One cool story, actually, I'll tell you guys a story. It just happened to me yesterday. I got an email from a very nice company I've dealt with in the past, and they emailed and said, hey, do you have a chance to do an honest review and we'll sponsor it? And I said, no, I don't do any reviews that are sponsored, regardless if it's honest or not, because I have no clue what that means. I just believe they're inherently, it's difficult to do a sponsored review without something weird creeping up. And I got an email back saying, I just want to say I'm a subscriber, and they are. I'm a subscriber and have been for a long time, even prior to working for this company. And I have to say that is the best response I've ever received from a YouTuber, and completely not what I've ever received from any other YouTuber ever. And I was like, man, that is cool to hear, because I think that really fits with my own thoughts of what I want to see going forward. And to hear somebody who is at a mid-level company, but a company that's releasing a lot of games and a lot of people are hearing about, to hear somebody there go like, dude, that is the coolest response I've ever got from a YouTuber. Because I told him I had, the ethics rules that I told you guys that I have for the channel about specific things I will and won't do. And I think that was a really cool response. And it sort of indicates to me, when it comes to reviews, what I pick and choose to review and stuff like that is fitting for me as a gamer. I get why companies want to pay, because, he said, we'll pay you for an honest review, because they want to give you money so that you can basically make up for whatever you're going to make and you're not going to make now, because you're going to cover their game. And that's a completely honest way to do business. And that's actually not inherently bad in and of itself. But my idea is that the moment you dip your finger in pig shit, you're going to smell like pig shit forever, regardless if somebody thinks it tastes good. So the next is, Terramite asks another question. Best OST for games. Best OST. I can tell you this. You know that one song that you hear and it reminds you of a girlfriend, or reminds you of a cool time with friends, or it reminds you of like that Johnny Cochran song? I can't remember what it is. Life is a Highway, where you're like, yeah, and you're driving. Those kind of things where they bring back that nostalgia. I have to say that for me, it would probably be Jade Empire does that for me for reasons I have a hard time describing, but Advent Rising by Tommy Tallarico nails it. Whenever anybody walks up to me and they're like, hey, get out of my way, because most people don't walk up to me. But whenever anybody emails me and says, hey, what's an OST that you really like? Advent Rising always pops up. The menu music with the girl singing and just the way she's singing is fucking haunting. And the way the menu is folding and showing different chapters of the game. And Tommy's choice of different instruments and the different way to do this haunting futuristic feel that is so different than Halo, but at the same time a little bit like Halo, that it just fascinates me that came out of one person, man. I mean, multiple artists, of course, were involved. The woman singing, fantastic job. But it admires me in that nostalgia of playing that game. And it's a game that's not great. But that's what I think is the greatest thing about some OSTs, is they're in games that aren't great. We play those games and we're like, this is a fantastic OST, but this game isn't the best. Those, in some ways, I think are the more poignant OSTs that we have. Of course, OST meaning official soundtrack. I apologize. Some people may not know that. The next question, Mark, also Twitter. How many developers want to buy a positive review from you? So I just spoke about this. A positive review, though, not a review and we'll pay you to stop doing what you were doing and cover our game. Zero reviews. Actually, yeah, an actual developer. What I have got, though, is China. China emails me probably 20 to 30 times a day. And a day, I'm not lying. Like, I am inundated with emails right now from them about iOS and Google and iOS and Android apps. And can you review this? Can you review that? And they hint around about positivity, but they don't really state it. Now, I have had the occasional review company have some pretty harsh NDAs, but I think that that's fine. The NDAs many times will say, don't show after level 6 because this and this happens. Okay, great. But when it comes to developers saying, give me a positive review and we'll give you money, I don't think I've ever had one. And I think the reason why, I could be wrong, but I think the reason why is because in my about section on the channel, I pretty much state that shit ain't happening. And you guys hear me, and I have video notations on some of these videos that talk about that, and I have a title of a couple videos that sort of discuss it. And I think if you're thinking about paying somebody money, you're going to inherently want to check out the channel, and you're going to want to understand the demographic in which that channel speaks and what fans are getting their information from that channel inherently. And I think that they see my channel and they're like, oh shit, okay, so we will not ask him. So does it happen? I'm sure it does, but I think it happens far more rarely than people assume. I think that other things do happen, like the Metal Gear Solid lets everybody go to a hotel and, you know, plush and food and play your game. That's just an odd situation as a whole, and anybody who went to that deserves to be slimed. Genofic, also from Twitter, says, assuming Scorpio will be $600 to $700 US, do I see more games migrating to PC gaming? So I sort of discussed this a little bit with how I said, you know, somebody asking me about Assassin's Creed Syndicate because they hadn't played one. I think that you have two types of gamers. You have the informed gamer who is an echo chamber, but also has a lot of inherent, deep, cool knowledge. And then you have the gamer who just plays games. Now, those gamers, no, they won't. Many of them I know, and I belong to some fairly large personalized LAN groups that are in the hundreds. If they are just in LAN, Halo, LAN, stuff like that, so it doesn't always mean PC, I actually have people who have just recently left PC, sold their PCs, or didn't upgrade them, and went to console, just in the last 2 weeks. And I also know some people who decided to buy PCs. Will it happen? Yes. But is that happening in a zero-sum game? No. And you know, a lot of people like to think that. They like to think that if that happens, nobody will leave and get a console. It's totally incorrect. Matter of fact, I know people who are very interested in the Scorpio and Morpheus, Scorpio and Neo, sorry, with the idea that they can possibly just stop upgrading their PC and just play a console that's going to have pretty good graphics. No lie, a ton of people think that. You know, when we're all sitting here on YouTube and we're discussing in the comments and we're knowledgeable and we have a lot of information, it's one thing to have that information. It's another thing to have that ego and the assumption that we are the only group out there discussing and enjoying video games. In fact, for the most part, there are probably far more people who do not have access to forums and who do not watch Karak's stupid reviews. Those people are also getting stuff. And sometimes when something's a little bit more expensive, do you know what they do? Exactly what happened when the PS4 and the Xbox One came out. I'm gonna stick with my Xbox 360 until I can afford it. And they look at what it offers graphically and they go for it. In fact, I know a lot of people who are focused on that. They're not focused on moving to the PC. They're focused on what the console that's coming out offers. And they're only going for that. So it will happen, but it won't happen in a vacuum. Everything else will continue to change just like it always has. And I know a lot of people who have both systems as well. Who have a console and a PC as well. So let's see. Scuffy, why do some companies not put platinum in their games? So this is a question that was asked in the comments section of one of the videos, and then we discussed it. And all I can say is this, you know, that's actually a pretty good question. I think, again, we have to remove ourselves. We have to sort of de-egotize ourselves and remove ourselves from the equation and look at the developer's point of view. The developers I've talked to are not inherently interested in platinum chasers whatsoever. They'll put them in, but they don't stress it, and they don't think about it very much. In fact, some of them are a little worried that a platinum might be an end-game situation for a gamer who otherwise might buy the game and might continue to play it, you know, past any point where they might have decided to give you a platinum reward. Now, platinum, of course, if people don't understand what that is, that's trophies on the PS4, and of course, you have achievements on the Xbox One. Now, I know a lot of people do like those kind of things, and I have heard people say, well, I'll buy it cheaper then because it doesn't have a platinum. I'm just going to be honest from what I've heard, so because I'm not a developer. They don't care. They would rather have a person play a game that they liked and enjoyed because that person is more valuable to them as a fan, will give them more valid feedback as a fan because that feedback will be based around the gameplay and all of that and not the worry about a fairly non-existent digital thingy that pops up. I mean, I'm just being honest from what I've heard. Now, the person I was talking to said they talked to one company that said, "Oh, we know that it impacted sales." It probably did. It probably did impact sales. But what you have to look at is sales are one thing. Fans that desire to discuss and resell the title by talking about it to others is something else. And do you know how many times I cannot explain that to somebody? I will tell somebody, be like, no, you don't understand. 100,000 is great, but is 90,000 passionate fans better than 100,000 fans who will play it to the platinum and then never touch it again? That's a huge deal. And there's some overlap between the two. But game developers usually can track that stuff, and many times they're just not that interested. So I will say that sometimes it's forgotten. Some games have them, some games don't. But the people I've talked to have not been sitting up late at night, rocking themselves to sleep, holding their pillows, worried if they don't have a platinum in their game. Tabitha says, I notice you don't stream. Why is that? So the reason why I don't stream is because I'm just not a big fan of it unless it's a walking the walk or a 24-hour cancer donation drive or something crazy and fun like that. You guys know me. I'm passionate. I'm high energy. And so me going tutorial, what's the tutorial do? Bothers me. Additionally, it actually impacts some of the way I play because I'm very, very interested in the conversations. And you guys can see that where I'll be watching the conversation. I died in Until Dawn. I couldn't climb up over the first fence because I was constantly like, people are like, man, look at the graphics. Oh, she looks real. And I'm like, yeah, she does. Oh shit. Yeah. And I was missing stuff. I am not the best at ignoring the chat. And I know some people can do that, but I know a lot of people will jump onto my streams and say one thing that really impresses me. They'll say, man, you interact with the chat in a way I have never seen before. And that's not tooting my own horn. That's trying to explain to you why I don't stream unless I really want to. Walking the walks are freaking fantastic. I tried to do the 24-hour donation cancer stream, and do you know what happened with No Man's Sky? I turned it into a walking the walk because I was like, at some point, you're flying from planet to planet to planet. Do you want to see me mine? Like, is that all you want to see? Because guess what? Mining is the same button combination for you as it is for me, as it is for any other person doing it. So I would rather offer the occasional awesome video, at least it's awesome to me, than a rote number of videos. Now, I do the weekly Warriors, but I do that because Cadiz and I play games together, and it's great to just record it because we have fun, we're always joking, and then people get to watch it. And I've had a lot of fans of that, and I want to say I apologize that we haven't been doing that as much, but with my shitty internet connection, as we upgrade, I haven't felt like that connection would be good enough for us to get a great game experience for those people watching. I will continue to stream more. I just have to be fiery about it. That's the way I get behind things. Tristan asks, what's the most important thing while reviewing a game? Honestly, man, this is going to piss some people off because I think people will think I'm talking about a group or a person, and I'm not. But leave your fucking ego at the door. Leave your ego at the door and review the game. I don't care if you hated the game. I don't want to see a 3-minute review. Like I said, it's not about you, and it's not about the social interactions and how it impacts the game at all times. It can be somewhat about that. But for example, I just had a developer email me, and they were very sad because I was one of the only reviewers that actually he felt reviewed the game. And I didn't give the game a buy, by the way. So this wasn't somebody kissing my ass. They were like, I just want to say, I appreciate you reviewing the, I appreciate you reviewing the game because you actually seem to review the game instead of the social issues in a nation I'm not 100% aware of. And I felt really, I was like, man, that sort of sucks. Because he's like, dude, I just created the game because I thought it'd be a game that would be fun for us to play and unique and sort of a cool style. And a lot of people were so interested in interjecting their own bullshit and trying to make it a social commentary when it wasn't. You know, I think that you inherently deball and devalue the discussion if you try to add it to everything. I think that what happens is that's noticeable and it's shallow and it's terrible and it's a lack of respect. And when a game really does try to do those things, I think that's great to talk about. When you have a game like Deus Ex, who's like, what did they say? All lives matter. Well, guess what? They jumped into it on purpose. But when you have a game that maybe just, hinges on some different aspects of, we had the police game. This is the police, a little bit about police corruption and that kind of thing. It's not all about like America. It's not all about the US. It's not all about those social interactions. Some of it can be about it, but is the game good is inherently a different question than is the game about some specific incident that occurred. That's bullshit. That's your ego talking. That's you trying to interject something so that you can seem more knowledgeable. Cover the fucking game. Let the game speak for itself. And then if you want to discuss that stuff, do a podcast. That's what I say. That's why you guys see me talk about this kind of stuff on a podcast. People have even asked me, they're like, well, you didn't cover this in the review, but I saw you on the international podcast cover it. That's because I think the review is for covering, surprise, surprise, the fucking game. Let's see the next question. And that's not being an asshole to you, by the way, for asking. That's a very good question. Tick77, why don't you do scores with numbers? Why don't others do your type of scoring? Well, I discussed this a little bit. I'm fiery about that buy, wait for a sale, rent, or never touch it again rating scale. People have asked me, oh, can I do that? Can I steal your thing? And I'm like, it just makes no sense for you to do that because it doesn't speak to you. It needs, whatever your score is, it needs to speak to you at a base level, because that's how you can talk about it and around it and detailed within it. Because if you are just like, I'm going to make up a blue, green, or red rating scale, well, what does red really mean? I mean, what does it mean? Like, why did you choose it? Because that's what matters. I chose buy, wait for a sale, rent, deep sale on a PC, or if you can't rent, and never touch it, because that's sort of, to me, the way it is. Like, never touch it means something, guys. If you see me say never touch it, that is technically the 7 to 7, maybe 10% and down kind of rating scale. That's pretty crazy. And what I do is I let the information within the review inform the gamer about where in those levels they exist. Wait for a sale. There's a reason why I don't say wait for a 10.2% sale, because that'd be bullshit. That'd be stupid. It makes no sense. What I say is wait for a sale, and then I give as much data as possible about what the game offers so a person can decide for themselves what a fucking sale means. Makes sense to me, doesn't make sense to everybody else. But that's why you don't see people doing it, and I hope they don't unless they intrinsically feel it, because I think maybe it was Eurogamer, but somebody was like, we've decided to go away from numbered scores. And it's like, who gives a shit? If the reviewers themselves have been using numbered scores and they believe in that, then switching to a lack of numbered score, do you know what that's doing for them? Nothing. I bet you $1 million they have an equivalent where they're like, okay, we're going to say good equals 8 to 6. That's the fucking same thing. You're just translating it. You don't inherently believe in it. You don't have the ability to talk about it in detail. And the next is Nick asks, favorite moment so far as a YouTuber or as somebody who reviews games? Composer discussions. So I love, PAX was great. Got to hear somebody scream my name across the street, and I'll remember that forever. It was a poignant moment for me to have somebody say, "Hey, Karak," and I was like, "Wait!" And I turned around, and another bearded dude came up to me. He's like, "Dude, I love your stuff." That was so fun. That was so great. We also had somebody at PAX. We were playing Rainbow Six, and I said who I was, and the guy beside me is like, "Dude, I subscribed to you." That was cool. But those are more like the fan things that you get that you don't know why they like you, right? It could be anything. It could be because I cuss and they like that. It doesn't necessarily speak to true usefulness for me. But what does is when I get a composer like Austin, and we talked about Abzu, and we got done, and we talked for another like 45 minutes, and to hear him say, man, I have to say, I did not know what to expect, because you hear somebody say they care about sound and music, but they don't know anything about sound and music. They don't know, what dynamic, they don't know all these things. I mean, we had him playing the rock theme song. If you guys haven't had a chance to check out that video, by the gods, please check that video out, because that was fantastic. It went crazy. We were talking about DNA and black holes and the rock and music and how it all comes together. It was crazy. And to hear him at the end say, that was one of the most enjoyable, if not the most enjoyable interview I've ever done. We hear it. We heard it also. This is a kudo to Cadiz and Vanzelwow as well. We did our first interview. My first true interview was with Fat Shark Games from Vermintide, and I looked at Vermintide while we were at GDC, matter of fact, and I just did a podcast with them about 3 months ago, and I didn't know if they remembered the discussion. So I said, we saw you guys, we covered the game, blah, blah, blah. I hope you guys didn't think we were idiots. And both of them, instantly, completely separately, were like, that was the most fun interview we've ever done, ever, with a YouTuber, because it was just an absolute blast. That's what I like. I like hearing that, where they had fun, because when a developer comes in and they're asked, or a musician, when they're told, like, what inspires you? Okay, that's fine, but you need to build on that afterwards, or you need to ask it differently. And that's one of the things I like to do. And to hear a composer really enjoy and get the kudos they are worth, that's fantastic to me, because music is one of those situations where we buy, $1,000 receivers, we buy 5.1 stereo systems, and most game reviews say music was bombastic. Bullshit. That's a horrible review. That review right there immediately shows the person isn't paying attention. You don't even need to cover music if your wording for it is just that, if you don't explain what bombastic means or why you feel. That is probably my favorite thing about this, is talking to the musicians and getting them to be excited about their job, not in this we're all musicians kind of thing, but in the bigger growing YouTube, because a lot of people don't cover it, and that's something I will cover till my dying day. So that's it. That's all the questions I got. I want to say thanks for everybody sitting by. It's been, 40 some minutes. I apologize. This was so long. I tried to cut it short, but I've been asked a lot of times to do it, and so I figured I would. So if you guys like the video, thumbs up. If you guys dislike the video, thumbs down. Remember, you can check me out. Follow me on Twitter. It really does help because that's where I talk about what I'm doing. That's where new questions will be asked, that kind of thing. We have the Patreon. You can always check us out there. We're gaming with some people who are patrons here in the next weekend or so. We are also continually doing the International Podcast and the Aimless Chatter Podcast, but because of the internet situation that I have right now as I'm fixing it, I'm keeping those to a bare minimum. So those are not going away. I apologize for that. That's it for me. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, which for most of us is not very long.